All right, Jarrad Horsley with Remax One. I was really surprised about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine, man.
But I appreciate you joining me here. I consider you a pretty good friend. We've gotten together over the last. I think you jumped in what 2020.
2020.
2020.
Yep.
We got to know each other basically through your mom. I think she was at the driving school, at Eyes on the Road driving school. I believe either for you or your sister. I can't remember.
Yep.
And I was with the other insurance company at the time, and I said I did this like presentation. I don't know if you remember it, probably not.
No.
I did this presentation, came with a bunch of paper. I would pass these forms out and have them sign and whatnot. And your mom filled it out. Let me call her and throw her insurance. And I mean, even up until 6 months ago, she was still insured with me. So, Jarrad Horsley, thanks for coming and joining me on my show here. This is episode 12 of the Your Platform podcast. I want to quickly ask you, why real estate? What did you do before real estate?
So before real estate, I worked at EB, Electric Boat, for people that, maybe they don't live in the state and they're watching online. And I was a kitchen worker at the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Washing dishes, just really basic stuff, serving a couple thousand cadets a night, and cleaning up their mess. So it was a humbling job. It was good money for what it was.
Was it messy? Real messy?
Yeah, it was disgusting.
I'm sure.
Dude, my fingernails smelled like chicken wings every night. And sometimes they smelled like peanut butter, barbecue sauce, one. And, but yeah, no, that was a good job. It was union, so that helped a lot with wages and everything. But it was also a second job. So
this is right out of high school?
Not right out of high school, but pretty close. About 2 years out of high school. Right out of high school, I was doing line work. And that was just a terrible job too in itself. You're out in the rain, you're out in the snow, doesn't matter what it is. And, the first time that I had wet socks for 8 hours straight, I was like, I need to find a new career. And so that's how that went. But the reason I got into real estate was once I got into the offices at EB, I had a guy that was in my cube, mentor almost. He was actually from the church that I grew up in. And he, we were talking, I was asking for his advice because I was starting to look for my first house. I had a nice sports car, brand new WRX at the time, maxing out the power on that thing. I wanted a garage for it. And I was like, hey, what do you think about this house? I'm showing him stuff on Zillow. He goes, no, you don't want that. It was a single family house. And at the time I'm thinking, why would I not want a house with a garage? And he said, look for a multifamily. And when he said that, it got my brain working a little bit. And at the time I had no idea there was different types of houses. I thought a house was a house. A condo was the only thing that, I thought wasn't a house at the time, or an apartment. And so anyways, started looking at multifamilies. He started to explain to me, people can pay your mortgage for you. Rental income is, how I pay most of my bills. Pays the mortgages, pays my electric bill, pays my truck payment. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty good idea. And, I'm over here thinking I got to work 20 hours of overtime at EB. And then I got to work at least 25 hours at my part-time job in order to afford the payment on the house that I was looking at. And I was like, well, maybe I could sacrifice that and look for a multifamily. So that's what I did. I bought a multifamily, had a pretty rough experience. It was a short sale that I was buying. So
quickly, because what's a short sale?
So a short sale is, it's not, the house isn't in foreclosure yet.
Okay.
But it's like the last straw.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the homeowners are still in it at that time?
The homeowners are usually still in it.
But they're getting ready
if it's a single family.
They're going to let it foreclose.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the last straw because they're trying to sell the house for less than what they owe on it. So they might put it on the market for $250, right? Just as an example. But their remaining mortgage balance could be $275,
So
$300.
Like, so they're upside down.
They're upside down. Yeah. But you can get out of it and there's no repercussions on that negative equity number.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's how I got this first multifamily. It took me exactly 12 months to close. So a whole year. And basically, 2 months in, the tenants upstairs, they come knocking on the door, say, hey, there's no heat. And they don't speak English either. So they're frio.
Mucho frio.
Mucho frio. And so I walk upstairs and I'm trying to figure it out. And, I'm turning the thermostat and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
The boilers aren't kicking on. It's freezing. Yeah. Nothing's happening. So call a heating company up and, they're like, yeah, you got to get rid of these things. And they're pointing stuff out to me that a home inspector should have pointed out. He's like, dude, these things, I don't even know how old these things are. He's pointing at like a door that swings open on the boiler.
Yeah.
And it's for you to shovel coal.
What?
And put in.
How old was the house?
The house was built in 1928. So it was pretty old.
Is this the one in New London? Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So basically, he's telling me I need a new heating system. And the boiler for my unit is the same exact one as the one for upstairs. So he's like, if you're going to change one, you might as well do both. Yeah. So there's a, $40,000 bill right there between new oil tanks, doing whatever he had to do to the radiators on both floors, and just getting the whole system up and running. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, $40,000. I don't have that. When I closed on the house, I pulled money out of my 401k.
Yeah.
I maybe had $10,000 left to my name.
Were you agent at this time or no?
No. Okay.
No.
So this is part of the story, right?
Yeah.
So basically, to cut it a little shorter, I had all these issues starting to come together when I first bought the house. And, in my opinion, the agent should have said, hey, look, prepare to start saving for these certain items.
Sure.
Or, gave the expectation up front, like, hey, something's going to go wrong here.
For sure.
Are you sure you still want to buy this house?
Right.
And the home inspector that I hired, he was just kind of like, turning on the water. Yep. Everything works. Opening up the windows. Yep. You're good. Yeah. So it wasn't something that was, really thorough.
Sure.
And I was 21 when I bought the house. So, I'm still partying on the weekends.
Yeah.
Probably walking through the inspection like, oh,
yeah, everything sounds good. I'm
still messed up. I'm about to buy my house. And, but yeah, so it was just one of those things where experience and age came into play. And I didn't have a whole lot of help. So as I bought that first one, as I started getting going, the guy in my cube, he was ecstatic that I bought a multifamily. And he's telling me, he's like, now you got to buy more.
Yeah.
Buy more. Yeah. And originally I thought getting into real estate would, maybe open up a door to find more off-market deals. And that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into real estate, why I wanted to become an agent. And then the biggest thing for me was I had met with the broker. He's showing me, all these different contacts of people in the database. He's like, these are all people that you can call. Right. You can do your thing. Ask them if they got property to sell. I'm like, oh, great. Like, that's how he sold me on it, which that was a bad move. But
it sounds like, Jarrad, your experience purchasing the house, you wanted to make sure that the people you work with don't go through that the same way. I think, to be able to learn through education, right? Because that's a form of education. And to be able to then say, hey, these are my clients and I'm going to be thorough. Cause I too, when I bought my first house, I was 25 and she was 23. We bought the house that, like, it was a perfect starter home. But she was very hands off. And again, I'm not going to mention any names. And I said this on the earlier, but different podcast. You know, I don't. We just kind of were flying by the seat of our pants. Like, hey, we're excited. It's a beautiful property. It's a cute little house, but it was built in 1925.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience, I would say, was pretty terrible. And I appreciate that you take that approach with folks. And I know just in conversations with you outside of this and outside of just real estate, that you're very detailed in everything that you study and whatnot. So it's 2020. Was it 2020 pre-COVID that you jumped in, or
March 2020? So basically,
right now, 4 years ago.
Happened.
Okay, right. When this, at that time, what were your feelings like? Global pandemic. Early feelings, right?
Yeah,
early feelings like, oh shoot, like things are shut down. What are your feelings that would?
Yep. So, I mean, I had money saved up because I knew like the first broker that I met with, they were saying, yeah, you might not get a sale for a year. And that was in the back of my mind. But, the guy that I had met with, he was like, there's no way you're not going to do at least 10 deals a year.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I can do 5 deals a year, kind of be in the middle, then I should be okay. Because at the time I still lived in that New London house. Sure. The upstairs tenants were paying most of the bills.
No more Frio though. There were no more Frio. There weren't.
No more Frio. No, they had new heating system. So, I had some money saved, and my thing was to just get out there and start doing it.
Yeah.
Started calling a lot of my friends saying, hey, look, this is what I'm doing now. Because again, it was for me, I wanted to do this and I wanted to do it better than everybody else that was already doing it because of my experience. Right. And it wasn't, I'm not going to blame it on the agent that sold me the house. That's not what it was. Mm-hmm. It was just the circumstances of the house. Like,
correct.
Even if, there was something that could have been done, the sellers of that house would have never been able to replace that system.
Yeah.
So I would have been out of luck anyways. Right. Getting in March 2020 was good. It was crazy because as soon as I started, I remember being in the office one day, we're doing our cold, warm calls to just people that we don't know, trying to sell houses. Yeah. And, Yahoo Finance is in the background. You just see the Dow Jones dropping like 500 points. Yeah. Everything's just tanking.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, wow, my employee 401k is not doing too well.
That's right.
From leaving.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, well, now I definitely got to sell some houses.
Yeah.
So that really motivated me.
Yeah, that's huge.
And then when I got my first deal, that was also a big motivation. I had a lot of people on that team that were really good at what they did too. Mm-hmm. So my competitive side was like, hey, let's kick it up a notch. Yeah. Let's try to match, other people's energy.
Right.
So that's what happened. My first year, I think I ended up doing 25 or so deals.
Good for you.
And then
what was that volume-wise dollar amount?
Oh God. Volume-wise was probably like $5 million.
Yeah.
Because that was my first year.
That's good.
That was great.
That's good, yeah.
And then second year, it jumped up significantly.
Yeah.
Did 40 units, over 10 million in volume.
40 units. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And then that's when I decided I wanted to make the move.
Yeah.
Do things on my own.
Sure.
Went over to EXP.
Yeah.
And then, basically started doing that. Working with agents from all over the country.
Nice.
Doing, learning strategies that they were all using. And it was good. Mm-hmm. But just recently, started with Remax One. Mm-hmm. And tons of top agents over there. Yeah, they're all crushing it. So
crazy producing team. I love seeing that. I know a lot of realtors that are there. It's awesome. And that's why I was like surprised, because you was on your own and you went there. And I thought, man, he's just put himself in a really good position.
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted being on my own. Yeah, but like any other business or activity, doing something alone,
it's hard
for long enough. It's hard.
Yeah. A lot of work.
The biggest thing for me was it was hard to stay motivated.
Sure.
Because I can look up people's stats all day long.
Right.
But if I'm looking at someone's numbers on a computer screen, it's not the same as someone sitting down next to me like you are, saying, "Hey, I just put this under contract, and I'm about to sell these homes."
So it lights you up a little.
That's
bit.
A lot different. So that's what I wanted to, surround myself with.
And that's okay, right? Because you basically you chose something because no doubt in my mind, you would have figured out being on your own, right? Eventually, if you stuck, no doubt in my mind. But I think we have this weird stigma where it's like, not us particularly, but there's like some stigma where, you're not doing enough based off of whatever scenario. So I'll just use like my example in insurance, right? I was with a pretty significant company, Fortune 100 company for a long time. And it got to a point where I was burnt out, but at the same time, I felt like I owed them something. And I owed them something because they put me where I was, from basically 25 to now. And from an insurance standpoint in the industry, I'm like, made a lot of money. I made a lot of good relationships. They taught me a lot from the sales aspect. But then, time goes on. And as I start looking at how things are changing in the industry, you kind of feel bad for thinking like going somewhere else. And I don't know if that was a me issue or if there's like that's something that they, kind of forced on us. And basically what I'm saying is like, it's okay to kind of branch off of what you think plan A is to now reset and have a new plan A. And I love that you did that. PBD, I shared that podcast with you. He said this is more on the health side, but I think it kind of applies to life in general. Well, he goes, there's three things where people want to make change. Something intentional, so very much like you wanted to start your business. I want to start my own business. That's an intentional move. You do all the groundwork. You do the what's the name of the company? What's the business plan? That's intentional, right? Unintentional, like, oh, this kind of fell in my lap. I acquired this because somebody gave me this X, Y, and Z, right? But then there's forced, right? You were forced to kind of make a shift, right? With what happened during COVID and say, hey, listen, and even now, right? Being on your own, you're forced. But I don't like the saying that there's plan A and plan B because you could just reset and start plan A all over again. And that's kind of what you did. And I love that. Let's quickly talk because it sounds like some of the principles of the gentleman that was in your cube was along the lines of Mr. Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And when you and I ask everybody this, what are some topics that you want to talk about? I love Robert Kiyosaki. I actually haven't read his book, but I listen to the Rich Dad Poor Dad podcast a lot. It comes out every Wednesday for those who want to tune in. But let's talk through that a little bit because those are some principles that you learned at. So was it in 2019 when you were with that guy?
2018.
So that's 6 years ago. You are 27 now. 28?
Almost 29.
Almost 29. Okay. Yep. So you were 22, right? If I'm doing math quickly. 21, whatever age you were. Yeah. But those are not principles that are taught. Buy property that makes you money. He always talks about buy something that's going to make you money, right? And those aren't taught, and that's the sentiment of in his book is financial literacy at that level isn't taught, and there's a lot of indoctrination out there that is, again, and my interpretation of it is it seems deliberate, and we have to go figure a way where we can have these financial literacy in education. So did you read that book previously to getting into real estate, or did you read that along?
So I read that book. Well, first I didn't read it. I did read it, but the first time was through an audiobook on YouTube. Yeah. That was around a year after I bought that first house, so in 2019. And listened to the audiobook. The biggest thing that stuck out to me, I've always been a frugal guy. You can probably tell by my clothes and my hair.
I'm not. I've become less frugal. It's so bad. I gotta get my life together.
So assets and liabilities is like the biggest takeaway that I had out of that book. Everyone thinks, a single family house or, a house in general is considered an asset. Right. Sure it is. Sure. I would argue to a point because he's a millionaire, billionaire. Like, yeah, sure, maybe a single family to
talks a lot
like
about
that.
gold. Talks a lot about gold, and there's a reason.
Well, now he likes Bitcoin.
Now he likes Bitcoin. I
like him a little bit more.
I saw his little, and we'll talk about that here a little bit. But I saw his post on Twitter about Bitcoin. He's been going crazy about it.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been as bullish as some of the other guys that I follow, and I'm sure that you follow on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, to circle back on that, assets and liabilities. So, I mean, for the normal person like you, me, our clients, right? Unless these people have millions upon millions of dollars, a single family is still an asset, in my view. Reason being is you can have money sitting in a bank, losing value all day long. There was a recent study that was just done, based upon inflation from 2020 to now. Your $1 would be worth 75 cents. So that's a big difference. Now, if you had bought property, let's say just in the state of Connecticut, to make it easy, because I know those numbers, on average, the median price was around 260, 265
in 2020.
And right now it's around 350.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about right, because we sold our house at 295, and now it's like 340.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to vary from town to town, but that's just a good idea, right? So if you had owned that home instead of leaving money in the bank, your home would have appreciated. You'd be a little bit better off.
Right.
Now, buying that single family isn't what's going to make you rich. But if you think about, terms of if you had a multifamily instead, and this is why they call multifamily real estate assets, is because you could live in one unit. Let's say the mortgage is, back then a realistic mortgage would have been like $1,400.
Sure.
Average rents for a 2-bedroom, New London County, we'll say, was probably around 12, 13. So you had $100 that you had to cover. Now you had an asset that's appreciating every year. You're only paying $100 out of pocket.
Right.
So the people that are paying rent, they don't have anything. They just have maybe money in the bank, maybe 401k investments. If you had bought real estate, you would have been living for free almost. So that's the key with that book. He likes a lot of commercial real estate. He's not so much into the 1 to 4 units. And neither are guys like Grant Cardone, right? They like all that commercial stuff, which that's fine if you've got that kind of money, but we're talking to smaller people here.
Do you, I heard this on actually on this podcast the other day. He had a guy on, I can't remember his name, is Arthur something. I actually bought the book. It's called Strength to Strength, I believe. He had mentioned assets are something you invest in, right? And liabilities are something you contribute to. And I love that. Again, it's funny because I know all this stuff, but I'm not disciplined enough. And I want to talk about that a little bit when we transition into next couple of segments here. But when you work with your buyers or sellers, are these things you keep in mind for yourself? And then do you ever shed light on some of this stuff? Obviously you're not a financial advisor, right? So never financial advice.
Yeah, none of this is, but I always share the principles that I've learned with everybody else. I mean, I feel that everybody deserves a fair shot.
Yeah, for sure.
And the first thing I ask people is, hey, are you open to a multifamily? And usually they say, what's that? Just like I did to the guy that was in my cube. And, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then most of their responses are, I don't want to be a landlord.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
You firsthand, right? You dealt with it, your first home.
Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons of being a landlord, but if you look at the bigger picture, which is what I like to look at, in my opinion, it's worth it. And it has been worth it.
For sure.
I've been able to put myself in the position that I'm in, and, my family too. It's,
at 27 or 28, when you were or 28 now, but like when we met, you were 25. Okay, my math is all jacked up.
I
but
probably didn't even have a hair on my face.
You didn't have hair on your face. You still kind of don't. But you educated me on some stuff. Again, we'll touch on it. But to be able, it's amazing to watch, and it's inspiring for sure. And that's kind of why I started this podcast, because everybody's story is different. Right? I'm gonna interview a bunch of realtors. I'm gonna interview a bunch of mortgage people. I'm gonna interview people. Like I had a permanent makeup artist on the other day. That's episode number 5. Anyway. But it is inspiring. That's why I wanted to start the show, to kind of give people a platform, because I don't see a lot of this put out there. So back to, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but so you share the principles with the people that you work with. Give me one that you really share with them.
So I've got one gentleman bought a multifamily in Groton, right next to EB. Mm-hmm. He was one of my first few deals. Yeah. I would say maybe one of my first 15. Uh-huh. And it was a friend from college.
I know what you're talking about.
Friend from college. He knew I bought my first multi. He's like, this guy knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. I had sold a couple houses then. So he's like, yeah I trust him. Yeah. And bought a 2-family right next to EB. Mm-hmm. I mean, he rents his friggin' parking lot out. He's got
good for him.
2 units that he's renting out. And he's getting top dollar. Yeah. So he learned. And then from him learning, his parents bought 2 multifamilies in the same year. Yeah. They were like, wow, this is actually
easier than
really interesting and a good place to park money. So they ended up buying 2 in Groton, 1 by EB, because it's always easy to rent there as long as they're there.
Right.
But so that's a prime example.
What do you think the disconnect is, right? The term parking money, it makes sense, but people don't do it because they're not disciplined enough. And there could be a couple of things. People have an insurmountable amount of debt that they can't do it. That's probably, in my opinion, I think that's probably number one.
The debt is part of the not being disciplined, though.
Correct. But you could clear, it takes a while to clear that debt, right? And then you have inflation that comes in here. So now that debt kind of keeps snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. But it seems and sounds so simple, right? It does. I park this money here because this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to grow X. It might not grow X, whatever it is, but it's a safer way, like you said, than keeping the money in the bank. We saw what happened in Silicon Valley. That was chaotic.
They got bailed out.
They did get bailed out. They did get bailed out, and but at the expense of what?
U.S.
Correct.
Taxpayers.
Correct. And there's a lot of I just feel like this isn't in front of us. How do you think people can get in front of this information? We'll speak to millennials and are you Gen Z? Are you still?
I think I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial?
I don't know.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I just, how do we get in front of this? You think?
I mean, the biggest thing is just, it's hard to say, because I could say go on X.
Yeah.
Just
everything's on there.
Everything's on there.
One way or the other. Yeah.
Just a basic Google search. Yeah. Scrolling through Yahoo Finance articles, like there's stuff everywhere. Yeah. There's tons of stuff on YouTube, all the podcasts that we talk about and follow. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like the information isn't there. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people just still follow the mainstream. Yeah. And that's where the main disconnect is, because they're seeing all the stuff that,
the inflated stuff, right? So you mean when you say mainstream, it's the stock market right now, the Nvidias, the Super 7, what is this? So Magnificent 7 in the stock market. It's the discipline piece, I think, is where people just don't have it in general. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of like, what is my end goal? And I'm just kind of speaking for myself, because it's like, what ultimately do I want to achieve? I want X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. And we've been fortunate enough to kind of be in a position to buy and sell the single family, to buy this house that we have now. Probably gonna be our forever home. But in 20, 25 years, when, I'll be in my 50s and my kids are, in their mid 20s, the idea is hopefully that this appreciates to something. But
the way they print money, it'll be worth $1 million.
Yeah, but then so would my milk. You know what I mean? Let's talk. I had never heard about the Bigger Pockets podcast. So I downloaded it and listened to it a little bit, and I actually specifically listened to. They had a woman on who was discussing the NAR settlement, which I find super interesting. We can talk about another time. We don't have to talk about it today. But what are some of your takeaways from their podcast?
So their podcast is part of what got me started after the guy in my cube was telling me to buy a multifamily. Funny enough, I don't know if he even knew about Bigger Pockets, but when I had started, doing my own research into what this guy called a multifamily, because again, I thought a house was a house,
right,
or a condo. That was it.
Right.
And stumbled across that website. And at the time, a guy named Brandon Turner was the host of that podcast. Now it's David Green, which he's great too. But Brandon was very analytical with things. And I'm an analytical kind of guy.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to really follow his content. But I mean, I probably read hundreds and hundreds of articles on that website. And, being in an office type environment at EB, I'm not going to say we weren't doing anything,
but it's easy to do.
There was plenty of time to, learn and
of course,
figure out other things. So, especially during lunches, right?
For sure.
So, I mean,
I love that about you, man, that you're just always seeking knowledge, bro. I love that.
Yeah.
I do love that.
So, I mean, computer's right in front of me.
Yeah.
Reading about it, reading about how numbers work, HELOCs, how to leverage debt in order to accumulate more debt. And, that was just very easy for me to understand. And I grew up in a kind of environment where, my parents were always working. There was a lot of time where it was just me and my sister hanging out because everybody's working, trying to make money.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I don't want that to be my life.
Right.
I want to be, not that I want to do better than that, but I do want to do better than that.
Yeah. And that's what your parents want for you, right?
Yeah. So seeing that growing up and, learning what I was able to learn, that was really cool for me.
Sure.
And then to actually see it in action. So that's when I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. And that's basically.
So that podcast is a huge influence to kind of you, and you probably listen to it. They post daily, I think.
It's daily. Yeah. I mean, they post articles every couple hours, but I mean, just for a place to go to really.
It's a good central location.
And just, I mean, you have people on there that are small mom and pop, 1 to 4 unit buyers only. You've got people that are doing commercial deals only.
Yeah.
You've got people that are doing a mix.
Good stuff.
I mean, it's everything. So it's not like you're only listening to Grant Cardone, or you're only listening to Robert Kiyosaki, where commercial only.
Right.
You can learn a little bit of everything, and you can figure out how to apply it to your life.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions about real estate. You mentioned to me, and I want you to just give me a higher level understanding of currency. I think I understand it. In simple forms, currency debasement is devaluing the dollar.
Yep.
In simple terms. How is that affecting real estate right now?
So, I mean, the currency debasement is basically what we've seen since 2020, which is what we were talking about. Obviously, I don't have the median numbers right in front of me.
Sure.
But, obviously, house prices from 2020, even prior to the rates going to zero, prices have gone up. Rates peaked last year a little bit over 8%. Guess what? Prices still went up. Sure, we saw price reductions in the market, but price reductions are only because they were priced too high.
Right.
They were still pricing it as if it was 2021, where the rates were 3% for an FHA loan. That wasn't the market that we were in. So reductions aren't prices are dropping. It's that, people are getting more realistic with where their home is going to actually sell at.
So you just answered what the misconception is then. What do you kind of see shifting with these trends, here in the next 6, 12, 18 months?
So inventory is what everyone loves to scream about right now. There's no inventory, which is true. There's not.
Yeah. I think the number was, sorry to interrupt you. I think year over year, it's like 900,000 across the country, which is like one of the lowest in history.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously as supply comes back, that might help even things out. I know Germany right now is going through a big, where supply is just slamming the market, and that's causing the prices to go back to normal.
Yeah.
I think so far they're down like 20 something percent.
Wow.
But
it's a big number.
It's a big number. So if it continues to go back down, that might start to hurt. Yeah. But I mean, overall, since 2020, we're up over 30% median. So even if we were to go down 20%, we're still above where we were.
I feel like COVID drove a lot of like you said, the inflation piece there. Is there a probability of something, again, we're not going to speculate, but a probability of something happening, whether it be the 2024 election coming up here, that investors and real estate professionals are saying, hey, let's keep an eye on this because we're going to make top dollar, or we're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is it's always the election, right? I mean, that's the same thing for the stock market.
Sure.
And
insurance, to be honest.
Yeah. And then the next step is really going to be when they lower the rates.
Right.
Usually that's when the market starts to trend downward, because when they lower the rates, that means the economy is not as strong as it's supposed to be. Right. So the people looking forward to the rate cuts, that's fine, but that's not an actual good sign. Yeah. Rates being higher or rates being flat is actually a good sign. That's what you want.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, I don't personally see anything that's going to happen other than the election, but I'm also the kind of person that is just go with the flow, see what happens,
and then react.
I'm not gonna stress anything. Yeah. But if I need to react to something, like you just said, that's how I would handle it.
Good. Let's jump into you are a crypto enthusiast. You again, not for financial advice, but when I first sat down with you, and I think this was when we took down about 50 wings at Hot Rods back in 2021. You were letting me know about crypto, and I've had heard about it. I heard about Bitcoin. I didn't understand anything about it, but it took off. It took off during that time. Let's talk to me. Give me a high level for listeners who don't traditionally listen to what Bitcoin is or cryptocurrency is. From my limited education of it, it's on a blockchain, and it's a decentralized way to protect your money, right? In simple terms. So blockchain being the network. So you give me the high level and talk to me a little bit about if you ever see it, if it's happening now, and do you see it coinciding a little bit with real estate?
So I don't necessarily see it getting involved with real estate until it gets big enough to where people start borrowing against it, almost like a 401k. I do believe eventually there's going to be mortgages backed by Bitcoin instead of borrowed dollars. And the reason is because the way they keep printing the dollars, the house prices are going to keep going up. Right. So the people that are protecting themselves against the dollar, against the government, buying Bitcoin, something that can't be shut down because it's a global network. I think those are going to be the people that eventually have the strongest money.
What do you love about crypto? What's, again, you educated me quite a bit over the last, and I think even to this day, I'll ask you, like, what about this? What's going on with Bitcoin? You text me a month ago, like, oh, look, it's about to pop to 70. It's going to go to 100. It's going to go, but what about crypto specifically? Do you love the most?
I like that it's not traditional.
Mhm.
It's not like you buy a stock, you need the whole amount to buy it. You can buy portions of everything, right? Um, you got silly things out there like Donald Trump and just all these meme coins. And
Yeah.
it's fun because you can buy shares of a company
Mhm.
and you can sit there for 10 years to maybe make 20%
Yeah.
if you hold it the whole time and you don't trade it.
Right.
But you could buy one of these silly coins and it could go up 100,000%. So 1,000x, and you could make a lot of money off of $100.
It's gambling.
It's gambling, but I actually just listened to a podcast the other day, and the question was, do you consider investing gambling? The way that he answered the question was really interesting because he said anything in life can be considered gambling.
Mhm.
You could get in your car to go to the store that's maybe 2 or 3 blocks away. You could get hit. You could walk to the store. You could not get in an accident.
Mhm.
So every little scenario in life could technically be considered a gamble. Like you get on a plane, right? It's the same thing. You get on a motorcycle, something could happen. It's no different with where you put your money.
Yeah.
As long as you're observing what you're doing and the decisions that you make are, this could go to zero, this could 100x.
Yeah.
Maybe I should take profit. There's a bunch of different ways to look at it.
So it's you basically, which is going to kind of go into, and crypto was just a not financial advice, just small, discussion. I do think that in watching and in learning, I do think that there's a purpose for it. I think everybody should have a little bit of it at some capacity. I think the challenge is when everybody, I got wrecked when I jumped right in.
Yep.
I got wrecked. You know me, the NFTs, this,
Yeah.
and I did well with the NFTs. I really did. I did pretty good. I did pretty bad in some, but for the most part, it was a break even on the NFTs. But there's a lot of calculated risk that come into it, and not knowing how the network works. Specifically like the halving coming up right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand what that means and why they do this. Do you mind just shedding some light there?
Yeah. So,
and this is just for Bitcoin? Is it for crypto?
The halving is only for Bitcoin.
Okay.
Every token has its tokenomics, as they call it, but Bitcoin is the only one where the supply is at 21 million and it's not going up. It's not going down. The only way it goes down is if you lose your coins, which people have lost coins. So the speculated amount of Bitcoin after lost coins is around 16 million. So if that number was true, that's pretty scarce. So if you can own 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.01 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin or more, MicroStrategies, which is a publicly traded company, they're now big enough to actually enter the S&P 500, which Michael Saylor is the main guy over there. And if you are interested in Bitcoin, you should really be listening to him. He explains things in a way that nobody else really can.
Yeah.
He had hundreds of millions of dollars held for his company where it was, put it in a long-term treasury and maybe make a few percent off of it.
Yeah.
And at the time, the way I understand it, the company was starting to fail. So it was like, well, do I take a gamble and, try to put this money somewhere where it's actually going to help the company survive and thrive?
Yeah.
And he put it into Bitcoin, and now they were trading at like $1,100 a share compared to 100. So, I mean, there's people out there that believe in it. Yeah. There's some people that absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
But
It goes back to that traditional way of thinking. The reason why people don't believe in it is just like they believe in that dollar. They believe in the
normal, legacy system.
Status quo.
Yeah. So,
and people are afraid of change.
Yeah.
And they're comfortable with the way things are. And I think where I have the fine line of it is because I can see the potential for Bitcoin. I mean, I look at it every day. I look at the all-time where it went from zero to where it is now. Obviously, that's an anomaly. But I think where I get a little nervous is like, and I share this with you, putting how much money do I need to put into Bitcoin to get that much money? And I think that's just part of the learning process and learning. I think I have plenty of time to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I do see the purpose and the the usefulness of crypto, and it can make a lot of people a lot of money if they do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
To answer your question though about the halving itself, if I'm correct, it's 900 Bitcoin that are produced a day right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in 30 whatever days it is,
mm-hmm.
the total produced on a daily basis is going to go from 900 to 450.
Okay.
And right now ETFs are buying like over 10,000 Bitcoin a day.
Yeah.
Between BlackRock, Fidelity,
Mm-hmm.
and now the people that are buying Bitcoin through the ETFs are people like me when I worked a day job and I had a 401k.
Yeah.
So that's where their money is being invested every week,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what they choose to buy.
Yeah.
So, and with age, everything becomes less delicate per se.
Yeah.
So now, where crypto has always had the big cycles where it's a big run up, then it's a slam down.
Mm-hmm.
As it ages, that run down has become a lot less volatile.
Yeah.
The last cycle that ended in the end of 2021, we only went down, it was like 68%, something like that. Compared to the last cycle, it was over 80.
Yeah.
And part of the big drop that was towards the end was when FTX collapsed, which was, they had the Miami Heat arena, and people were fooled. Put your money in this exchange and get your crypto out. Right? Or
it's like 8 months ago or so.
Yeah. It was November. I want to say it was November of 2022.
Okay.
Because Bitcoin really started to recover January of. That's when everyone says the bull market started. And it makes sense because that's when everything just slowly started to run back up.
Yeah.
But the real pump was when the banks failed. Everyone was like, oh my God, well, where do I put my money?
Right.
So, if your money's not safe in a bank, put it in real estate, put it in the Bitcoin. And that's one of the things that a lot of the Bitcoiners like to talk about because, especially Michael Saylor, he says you cannot bring hundreds of millions of dollars in gold or silver. You can't bring it with you.
Yeah.
You would have to put it on a boat. You'd have to put it in a truck.
Right.
You'd have to have armed security.
Right.
Like now you can put it on a thumb drive or you can put it on your phone and walk around with it.
Yeah.
And you can go anywhere with it.
That's the beauty of it.
So it's very mobile. And that's what a lot of people like. And again, it's on a worldwide network.
Sure.
So unless power goes out everywhere, internet is just cut. Like
Black Swan event that I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the only way you're going to get rid of Bitcoin.
But from what I understand about that technology is that it cannot be can't be deleted. So the power comes back on, boom, there it goes. You don't lose it.
Yep.
Unlike what happened with these banks where that money was just wiped out. So we have a few minutes left, Jarrad. I do have one question about, I consider you an entrepreneur, with the different dealings you have, real estate and all that stuff. What specific mindset shift did you have when you transitioned from the 9 to 5 day to day to where you are today?
The biggest mindset that anybody should have is discipline for themselves. You can go work for a company from 9 to 5. You're making that money. Or you can work just as hard for yourself, if not harder, and create a much more successful outcome. And I've always believed that. I've watched it happen for me. I've watched it happen for a lot of other individuals. And I'd much rather see myself come out on top versus, some big wig at a company.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with the discipline, and I struggle with discipline. I think we're all human. There's certain times that we get setbacks and whatnot. And I think with discipline, the hardest thing is to be patient with it. So be consistent, do the same thing every day, over and over again, and be patient with the results, because you're not going to get the results right away. Jarrad, I appreciate you doing this with me. Where can people find you?
Jarrad Horsley Realtor on
Instagram
and Facebook,
and Facebook. But yeah, I appreciate you doing this with me. It's a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again. I'll continue to educate myself on crypto. Maybe we can do a whole thing on crypto. And that's all I got, man.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Thank you.